Hi, and welcome to the Pain and Bread Quarterly Slush Pile. Super exciting today because we're all in the room together. Yay! Loyal listeners will know that I've been disappointed that we're in my office instead of the sound studio, and it makes it worse today because when we're in the sound studio, I can hold Marion's hand, and now she's across the table from me,
and we can't tickle each other.
During the episode, but at least we're together. So you're going to hear that a few times if you're a loyal listener, because we're on a marathon day. We're going to try to do several podcasts at once, and we're very excited, and it's all poetry all the time, and so we're ready to go.
Should we do an introduction?
Let's do an introduction anyway, even though we're together.
Do you want to go clockwise or counterclockwise, and which way is the clock? I'm going to speak. My name is Marion Wren, and I'm thrilled to be sitting in Kathleen's blue office with our colleagues. And I'm visiting from Abu Dhabi, where I direct the writing program for New York University in Abu Dhabi. And to my right is Amber, who's here as our podcast producer. Person, right?
Yeah.
And next to Amber, Cherie.
Hi guys, it's Cherie DeVos, and I am the co-op for the Director Publishing Group in PBQ. I am a junior who studies global things, and to my right is Tim Fitz.
My name is Tim Fitz, and I've been teaching at Drexel for about 5 years, and I've been reading with the Pain and Bread Quarterly for about 4 years. And I am the author of a short story collection called Hypothermia, and a new forthcoming collection called Go Home and Cry for Yourselves, which will be out this fall with the Xavier Review Press.
Woohoo! So exciting. Yeah, I got thrown off my game completely because you were here. We didn't introduce anybody.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Marion's always in a different time zone, and now I know for a fact she's drinking coffee because we got it on our way in. So the eye that keeps dominating and screwing up is Kathleen Volkmiller. Hi. I direct the publishing program here at Drexel, and that's about it. All right. And editor of PBQ, and I write, and
that's the biggest understatement ever.
Daydream.
About it.
All right. Okay, so let's jump in. We're going to start off today with 2 poems from Alana Folsom, and the first one is called Anatomy of a Dream. As most of you, I hope by now, are loyal listeners, you'll know that you can see this poem on our website, ppqmag.org. And the reason I'm talking about that is it's set up pretty funky. Mm-hmm. It's wide. There's lots of air in it. Spaces inside the lines. Yeah, it's a visually complicated poem, but we're now going to read it to you.
Yes, and can I read it? Because as I was sitting
I know
here,
where you want to read
it slid across my lap and sort of flew away, which is oddly apt given what this poem is about. So Alana Folsom, Anatomy of a Dream. Sorry, I just got your joke too wide. Anatomy of a Dream. After I send you the picture of my naked body, I dream my nipples are bird beaks. They remain shut, small, pointed things. Then they grow like flying noses, grow like hardening dicks. In flight, hummingbirds look like matches. At the base of their long bill, a throaty blaze in flight. Hummingbirds sound like matches, perpetually lighting. Perhaps my nipples are matches, pink and flaming and waiting to spark. Perhaps my nipples are hungry, winging matches.
Thank you. So there you go. Discuss. I've never thought about erect nipples being like erect penises. That the same thing happens. Have you?
Sure.
Hardening body parts?
Yeah. Didn't we have that big fight like 30 years ago with a poet about the flesh of a nipple and the flesh of...
No. Well, the fight was about clitorises and penises.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
the famous poet could not believe that they were the same thing at a certain embryonic point and was furious at me. Furious, like throwing things at a restaurant, furious. And I kid you not. True story.
True story.
I'm not talking about the flesh, the actual hardening.
Yeah.
I never really even thought about that, I don't think. So that's fun and interesting to think about, as is the hummingbirds looking like matches. And then that phrase, a throaty blaze. Mm-hmm. I like that phrase a lot.
Mm-hmm. I like the triangulation, right? So it's like nipple to match to birds to matches to boobs as matches, right? Like the sort of the trifecta at the end there, like pulling together. The way the poet integrates those images, I think, is pretty astounding.
Anatomy of a Dream is like a simpler title for this than what we get. Do you know what I mean? Right. Anatomy of a Dream sounds like a college film title.
Right. Isn't that
really mean?
Painting, or it is Maya. Oh, who's the famous female filmmaker? Maya Deren. And it's something about, I thought it was like Anatomy of a Dream. That's worth a Google. I'll get that figured out in a moment. Anyway.
I wonder if the lying noses and the hardening dicks are kind of, for me, they're a little bit distracting, because the lying noses, when I think of something that grows, it's the first thing. And then the hardening dicks is a little bit distracting, because those images, one image I'm sick of, and the other image I feel like is a powerful image in a way. Well, it's also kind of cliche too. Someone's thinking of things that grow. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's such common images that they kind of get in the way of some other uncommon images. Like when you get to the hummingbirds sound like matches and perpetually lighting. Mm-hmm. Nipples as matches. To me, the nipples as matches are a little more interesting, because I've never thought of it that way, and I can get into some other headspace that is a little more surreal. I'm not crazy about surrealism and surreal poems, but I know that that's my hang up, and I'm not going to hold it against the poem. Mm-hmm. But I will get a little distracted by things that I'm sick of. I mean, surrealist, anything with images that are common completely shatter the illusion.
Yeah. So it's, in listening to you talk to, I think I was thinking of, it's Maya Deren's Meshes of the Afternoon. That's the film. And it's a surrealist film, right? And so in a way, I think that's the structural appeal of the poem to me, is the way the poet's moving from image to get to this, conflation, right, of breast and hummingbird and match, or nipple hummingbird match.
Yeah.
But I
nipple hummingbird match, I have no problem with it at all.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nipples in the poem, and that's...
Yeah, the word nipple gets repeated a lot.
If there's any way to mix that up a little bit, it would be nice. Mm-hmm. Or if there's another way to phrase hardening dick, if there's some other way of getting that image without... That's kind of easy language there. Mm-hmm. So it's not the image that I mind, it's the easiness. Okay, and the lying nose seems like you could pick something out. It seems like anything would work for lying noses. Anything that grows would work.
Right.
Except for that, because that's...
Yeah, but I think there's also the one thing I would defend for just those images and the way they're laid out on the page is you go like lying noses, line break, indent, growing like hard dicks, big space, in flight, right? So the sort of like holding back on the in flight makes the hardening dick very funny, right? Like it's not just a hardening dick, it's like dicks in flight. It's kind of funny.
Right.
So when I first read the poem, I was surprised at the sense of humor in this too, right? Like I thought it was going to be this sort of like, statement of nipples and empowerment. It is that, but it's also hummingbirds and dicks in flight. Kind of fun. So anyway.
But I'm sorry, I'm reading it completely differently. The in flight has that capital letter. In flight, hummingbirds look like matches.
Right? Yeah.
Dicks were not in flight for me.
Yeah. They remain shut, small pointed things. And they grow like lying noses, growing like hardening dicks. Right. And even as I read it that way, that big space is in flight. Hummingbirds look like matches, but it sits on the same line.
Right.
So you get a little joke in there if you read it, the one way, not the other.
And don't people light matches and why do people fling matches? That's a thing, right?
That's the thing. I think little children as pyromaniacs do that, right? Like swink, they shoot matches, right?
Okay. Must have been the Florida years.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the spacing for a second too. What does the spacing do or not do for the poem? Is that another distraction? I kind of like Tim's word. Maybe like my first comment was, I liked all of these comparisons, but they're so not, you don't think of hummingbirds when you think of nipples or dicks, right? And the nipples are really the most prevalent image. I guess the nipples in them. But nipples as matches, I'm still not getting, even reading this, talking about it. Nipples as matches. I love, perhaps my nipples are matches, pink and flaming and waiting to spark. So metaphorically, I get it. But visually,
not happening.
Visually, nipples as matches, no.
Okay.
For me. Metaphorically, I love that line. So it's kind of.
Do hummingbirds look like matches?
I'm trying to get that too.
Well, right? I think because aren't they red at the tip? And then they're dark.
Their long bill.
Yeah, they've got long bill, so they look like matches.
I guess I'm thinking of the shape too. So like more instead of like.
Right, but humming. Yeah, I think. I don't know. I think that's what it is.
Like you see them pretty close up. I used to see them outside. My grandmother had a bird feeder for hummingbirds.
Sure.
She never saw them, but every time I washed the dishes, they always out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're they
when they're hovering, and eating, they don't look like a match. When they fly, I think they're sharper, more pointed thing.
Yeah, they're kind of dark.
Right.
It's not it would be a go-to image. But when I saw it, I didn't think matches. But
no.
I can get there. I'm not going to put up too much of a fuss.
Right.
It's not the first one.
But it's also, okay, and that's the risk of metaphor too. It's like when you put two dissimilar things together, the metaphor works when you're like, oh, holy shit, that's right. And it makes your brain, what is it? Ann Carson says, like a metaphor makes your brain feel like it's in the process of making a mistake. Right? Like, so your brain is going, no, whoa, shit, that's right. And then once it's right, it's forever that way. Right? My brain doesn't quite have that feeling on hummingbirds as matches. Like it's cool,
right?
But my synapses don't go, what the?
Yeah, I want to be talked into it.
Yeah.
Well, right. I guess that's what I was saying about the nipples. I don't see nipples as matches, and I have to work really hard to see hummingbirds as matches.
All right.
Well, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless there's more to say about hummingbirds and matches and breasticles.
I mean, I think you were about to start talking about spacing, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was asking what it does or doesn't do as another distraction. I never really got an answer on that from anybody. I don't know. It does cause things like interpretation to be very different or how one reads it, right? Did you have thoughts?
I think it was a little distracting at first, but I guess like going back to the title, it's supposed to be somewhat dreamlike, and you know how dreams are sometimes they're spotty and they don't really make sense. So to me, like the structure doesn't make a lot of sense. But when I think of it as relating to the title, it kind of, I guess, does something more. But then also, I guess like the images and the metaphor and everything, they're supposed to be like a dream in the sense that they don't always make sense. So I'm not really sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, no.
to anybody, but yeah, that's what the structure kind of said to me, that it's supposed to be more like a dream and not just like stating different things like my nipples are like this when they're hardened, or like erections and things like that. But all of the like spottiness, I guess, is first it's supposed to be like the experience of a dream, and like when you wake, they don't always connect.
Right.
You get bits and pieces.
It's meshes, right? That you get that sort of meshing, but not necessarily a full-on argument. Maybe.
I feel like some of the things that I don't like about the poem, I also don't want to give off the impression that I like what the poem is trying to do. And because I feel like good is always weird in a way. Weird is not always good, but good is always weird. Whether it's food or music or poems, there's always some weird element that jars you. And so I really like, none of it is obnoxious. The things that bother me are not obnoxious at all. And I like that I like the chances that are being taken.
Yeah.
I like that chiasmus, right? Good is always weird, but weird is not always good.
So it's like
there's our episode title.
If you're batting 10%, you're doing great.
Yeah.
You just have to write 100 poems. 100 stories.
Right.
Oh, 10 cents.
Okay, shall we vote?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. 1, 2, 3, vote. Okay, Anatomy of a Dream is not happening. So that's a bit of a disappointment. But we have another one from Alana. What the heck?
That sounds like the Popo.
The police are here?
Busted for saying no. Surprise! We're doing a podcast.
Oh my God. Not quite in time at all.
I thought it was the police, like all of our hotel
No, it's just me. I got stuck in traffic.
No,
The rain was terrible.
Surprise!
That was actually really scary.
We didn't tell anyone that you were coming.
Some of us knew, a lot of us didn't. Yeah, now we'll let the listener in on the surprise. But yeah,
Reach and grab this. I think.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, you gave him. Okay,
I gave him what we're about to do.
Great. So you're just in time for the second poem by the same poet, Alana Folsom. But I do have to say this. So, I always love when there's first, and I try to find first. And Jason recently did a podcast where he was driving from one place to another. Remember? He did it via Bluetooth.
Was I don't
Maybe that was one that you couldn't do. Yeah.
That was dangerous.
Really, he thought he would be able to pull over, and he wasn't. So now we have him here, and only a little late.
There's all this traffic, so I thought he was off on 95. Instead, I just stopped on a bridge.
What we will do for art.
That's too funny.
What we will do. Okay. All right. Okay. So, Alana Folsom, number 2, mirroring. I study myself and find him in the ridge of my nose, in the rungs of my rib cage. Boys who will never meet him cup and bless my body, tug my damp underwear past the knots of my knees. They don't see him. They don't see anything else besides me. And I am sorry for all this sex, so close to my father. But he is within me, even as he withers away. Same flat feet, same bone shapes. As any good daughter would, I hug my father goodbye at his red front door. Try to mean I love you and not don't die before I learn what love is for.
Nice Nice reading.
Nice poem. Now this one is much more traditionally formatted than the one we just had from Alana. This is little couplets, little pairings, and it's a long and skinny poem. Looks like what an old-fashioned poem used to look like. Remember?
True, before they got all
I used to call them scratch and sniff poems. Well, if I arrange my words like this, that makes it a poem, right? No, not this one. I mean, like when.
Yeah, it's nice that modern history verse has now become modern history verse has now become.
I mean, when I would be teaching the students that just if you arrange your words to look like this, don't make it a poem. Yeah.
There was a time when the title came after the poem.
So this is a poem in all ways. I love the title.
Mm-hmm. And I particularly like the surprise of the father and the body, right? And it's both a surprise and not a surprise, right? Like, so there's that kind of delightfulness of, the delivery of the expectation that gets set up in those first couple of couplets, right?
Yeah.
Looking for your parents in your body, like looking for the trace, your heritage, your ancestry, like in your body. It's a sort of lovely premise.
Absolutely.
And then to me too, I think this sort of like surprise of that erotic moment, right? Like of thinking about sex and parentage, and it's all in the mix. It's a lovely like twist.
Yeah. But it's also really organic. Like that's what we go right from the top. I study myself and find him in the ridge of my nose. Boys who will never meet him only see me. Right? It's just,
And I
dig it.
And I am sorry for all this sex so close to my father is growing up.
Yeah.
Because it's aware of what it's doing, right? That's like this little moment of self-knowledge that brings out the fact that like you can't get around the fact that your parents had sex to make you.
Right.
And yet your sexuality has to be quarantined from your parents' sexuality in this way.
Right.
That you can never quite keep those boundaries straight. Although I mean we certainly know that when those boundaries are being crossed. Right. I mean this is crossing it in like an okay way.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's like bordering on not okay, but it's still
right.
I just watched Broadchurch. Sorry.
Oh,
like a little
Broadchurch.
It was like Twin Peaks for British people. But boring.
Both seasons?
No, just the
first season.
But like everyone in that entire show is having underage sex. Like they're like 15 people who are like, oh yes, well we met when she was 15. But like a week and a half later, it would have been all right. 11-year-old, that's totally off limits. That's the plot of Broadchurch.
Right.
Yeah. It's not tuned in yet.
All right. What's great? I'm sorry. What's great? I'm sorry to bring it back to the poem.
The issue.
What I think is also great is that line that Jason's talking about. I'm sorry for all this sex so close to my father. I love that so much too because she's talking about having these same body parts. So like she's using these parts that he gave her for all the sex, and I like it.
Yeah.
Ways who will never meet him.
Cherie, Tim, thoughtfulness, space.
Yeah, no, this is a sort of a good example, I think, of how the other poem bothered me in ways that were sort of irritating. And this poem obviously has parts that bother me. But they bother me because they're things that you don't want to think about.
Obviously, because I'm Tim Fitz.
No, I am
talking about
by the radiant images and then bothered.
No one likes to think about how we look like our parents and all this stuff.
Or at least while we're having sex.
Right.
But it's bothering in an interesting way. It's engaging, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I don't like to think about these things.
I do. I actually really do. And I really mean that because if you think the reasons that Jason's saying, like we're all sexual beings and everybody, just like every marriage is a snowflake, everybody has different relationships with their parents in this way too. Like if you're open about talking about sex with your kids or not, or, it's so complicated when it comes to
and you wrote
parents and children
in the New York Times about having to talk to your daughter about oral sex.
Yes.
And it was a beautiful piece
Thank
in part
you.
because you were putting aside all of your maternal instincts to do what you believed was right. And
Right.
it's amazing how much of the backlash from that was like, how dare you? Like, how could you do anything else?
Oh,
I mean, like,
thank you. And I didn't see it as putting aside my maternal instincts. I wanted my daughter to be evolved and fulfilled and,
Right.
experience life in all its ways.
But I will say, every time my parents tried to talk to me about sex, I was just like, la, la, la.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody has very complicated.
Well, this really resonates with me because my father died when I was very young. So as an adult, like being able to see his reflection in my face is like kind of a ghost story. And to think about his body and my body and sex, it's just fantastic reading this. I will say that the last two lines of the poem, and I would love to hear what you think, verge on a kind of sentimentality that makes me kind of cringe a little, right? Don't die before I learn what love is for. It sounds a little like a 70s song lyric.
Oh,
sorry, is that harsh? Because Alana, I do love this poem, but I need people to deal with those last two lines. Deal.
I felt that too, but I didn't know how to say it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, now that you said it, yeah.
I immediately forgave it.
You did?
Yeah,
Okay.
because she's having all of it made perfect sense that it was where her head was and not that she was reaching for any kind of sentimentality at all.
Yeah.
Just that simple boys in the plural, boys who will never meet him.
Yep.
So she's having rather random sex or lots of sex, right? Either or both. She's not bringing them home to meet her dad, right? And so she's trying to figure out what it means. It makes very much, it makes a lot of sense for me.
Okay, you're helping me. Maybe it's not that it verges too much towards sentimentality, but it's just a sincere recognition. Like that, it's just the simplest way for her to say that is what she's done. Don't die before I learn what love is for. Right.
I try to mean I love you. Like she wants to just love him simply in the ways that she can and should. Air quotes on the should. But it's still all tied up in who she is as a young woman.
That it made me feel like the poet was young.
Yeah.
Because when you get older, you find out love isn't for anything. like there's still this youthful faith that,
Alana, it's not
and sex is only for procreation, right? Is that right?
No, but I will say, I thought that there was the images of the damp underwear past the knots of my knees was wonderful for being direct without being either like slut shaming or kind of over glorifying sex or over romanticizing sex. I thought that was like a beautiful kind of like very direct observational image. But that ending, it just made me feel like the poet was very young because like you're gonna find out like it's not for anything.
I can't.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I see what you're saying, but also like sex without love, can still be a choice. And that's part of what she's talking about.
What gay men make very many times a night.
And as do many others. So I think that for me, that was part of it too. She's just trying to figure out, is this okay? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think she has to be young to have that thought. Because slut shaming aside, everybody, I think, questions, people. I was listening to the girl who's on the woman who makes that great show, Insecure.
Issa Rae.
Yes. Okay. And she was talking about the difference between smashing and being in monogamous relationships and how she knows a lot of people who double dutch between the two. That was my favorite phrase of the week. That, they go through little periods of smashing and then a monogamous relationship or two. And then,
In order to smashing, I love that.
I love that.
You never heard that?
Well, thank God you said that. I'm over here going, Smashing.
Don't you love it? Well, no, you know.
Okay,
Contextually, you know. Yeah.
It's a good,
Yeah.
it's an act
So
in it.
literally, she was on John Oliver last night, or I watched it last night. God knows when it actually aired. It's 2017. I mean, I don't know, but I watched it just last night, and so that's where I think she is. And that am I supposed to only do this monogamously? But can I just smash?
Well, and also she's dealing with. I mean, clearly her father is dying, right? I mean, her father is wasting. His body is revealing its frailty and temporality.
Yeah.
And one of the things that people tend to do when they're dealing with dead bodies is to have sex, because that's like a celebration of the body. Like your body is, eating and screwing are like the two great carnal pleasures that are kind of self-contained within your body that, you can recreate. You don't need a guide for them.
Yeah.
Like you're going to do them on your own.
Yeah. So, Cherie, when we write about this in our podcast notes, which we will, I think that we should really give her credit for helping us figure out Issa Rae. Let's give her credit figuring out how to talk about this poem.
I'll give Issa Rae credit.
Yeah.
Cool.
Shall we vote?
I think so.
Okay. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, vote. And it's unanimous! Woo!
Yay!
I only announced the unanimous ones. Thank you so much, Alana Folsom. I'm so happy to have this poem. Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to send it to Issa Rae, and she's going to read it on air.
She don't love
Props.
Yep.
She's going to build a show around this poem. Props. It could happen. Amber, how long have we been going here?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sarah Stickney's Guest.
Sure.
Next up is Sarah Stickney with a poem called Guest. We actually wanted a couple from her, and they were published elsewhere, so we're trying to jump on the Sarah Stickney train. Let's see what happens.
Yes. Staying with friends, I felt embarrassed by my love for them, as if it were a wound that might bleed onto their pale and knotted carpets. Back home, I filled my kitchen with the first daffodils that had been lured by the sky's fetish blue into blooming, and nearly ruined by the late snow that pressed into the windows as if asking to be let inside. I need the sound of fire as much as I need its warmth. I know the loneliness of being among others, a scent like a waltz at low volume. I suspect only egomaniacs like this much solitude, but like me, fire never says enough. Fire, my good dog, my work shirt, everything living holds heat, even the long, cool leaves of plants. Their gestures as subtle as hungry guests moving tentatively in a kitchen. Wind blew in a poem, and then outside all day, as if it were starving flame. Who knows how the wind feels about its job, of touching everything, how it lives this omnivorous love, and whether it speaks a word to everything it touches.
Nicely
What a gorgeous reading. Can you just read to me? You should do a podcast where it's just you reading.
Yes.
Just be reading poems.
Just you reading poems.
That's 71893 12.
Free delivery.
I would fall asleep smiling.
Do you remember,
I think.
like back in the 90s, we could call to have the Constitution read to you in a sexy voice? And it was like a woman's voice reading the Constitution sexily to you.
Really?
Yeah.
Listen, remind me to tell you guys, not on air. There's a new thing now. It's called bespoke porn. Bespoke porn. Just use your imaginations. I'll fill you in later. It makes perfect sense in this time. We're going to talk about it right now, but we're not
watching
going
a documentary, and at the end they were like, now he makes custom-made wrestling videos for clients, and I was like, that's fetish porn. Like,
That
that's
is.
not.
That is.
That's
Okay.
That's
So sorry. That was so my bad,
We're
Sarah.
back.
So my bad. We're back. And we're back.
Well, okay, but I love that the way that comes back here too is about this poet sort of like confessing to like the sort of like know, the pleasures of feeling connected to her friends and simultaneously this sort of like pleasures in the isolation. Like it's doing both sides of that equation. And there's like a kind of blessing in it, right? Like
the an intensity too.
And I don't know if it was like Jason read it beautifully and it read like a blessing, right? And the way it's sort of unfolding across the page.
The line breaks are fantastic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The choreography on the page is wonderful.
Mm-hmm. I need the sound of fire as much as I need its warmth. I know the loneliness of being among others. A scent like a waltz at low volume.
That's brilliant.
What?
Yep.
That's just gorgeous words right there. That's a bunch of gorgeous words all in a row.
But the gorgeous words all in a row get me all tangled up a bit towards the end there, like in the last little chunk of the poem. Wind blew in a poem, and then outside all day as if it were a starving flame. Wahoo.
I just think reading a poem. She read a poem that day with wind blowing.
No. And to me, that feels like something about inspiration, like wind blew in a poem, maybe the very one she's writing.
Oh, the wind blew in a poem.
And then it blew it back outside all day as if it were starving flame, or the wind went outside. I don't know. I get a little.
That is so funny.
Jacked, and that turn of the poem jacks me up a little bit.
Even when I read it before today, I pictured her in this house guesting and reading a poem that had wind, and then going out and then feeling the wind. And later, the wind's outside, right, licking about
I totally
like
get
a flame, right?
Exactly.
And it reminds her of the poem she read earlier.
Yeah. So wind blew in this poem that I read.
Right. Wind blew in a poem, and then outside all day.
As if it were starving flame, period.
Right.
But that, okay. Yeah. Who knows how the wind feels about his job? That makes sense, but yes.
Staying with friends, I felt embarrassed by my love for them. That's how I feel every time I visit you, Mary. I'm not even lying. No matter where that may be.
It's true.
I'm embarrassed.
That's a mutual love. Our listeners should know
I
that there's a BBQ tonight. You're going to go past the characters, like making faces at you, in your house, eating barbecue.
Sometimes I love you so much, I'm embarrassed. And so I told, from the first line, I'm already like, yes, I know that. As if it were a wound that might bleed, like that you can physically see, like, I'm so pathetically in love with you. You know?
It's a feeling I've had.
Yeah. Well, you better have that in my house because I give you my satin pajama pants to take home.
I slept this. I love the satin pajama pants. My favorite satin pajama pants.
All right, listeners, this is really hardcore backstage PDQ you're listening to. It's references to satin pajama pants. But what you're missing is the look on Tim Fitz's face right now. Deep concentration. He has like shut out all this like chatter and is focused in on this poem.
But listen, even from the porn, we have Fetish Blue, the intensity of this poem, the passion, like actual passion, right? It all does make sense. Like I think our segues or our tangential things actually make sense.
The early summer is gorgeous.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Flowers, right? I mean, flowers are sex organs.
Yeah.
Right? When you're looking at flowers, you're looking at like the sex organs of the plant. And that, you know, they were sort of tricked into blooming and
lured by this guy's Fetish Blue.
But I know the loneliness of being among others. Like I almost want to read that as like a kind of like I'm an introvert when I'm among people, but it's also this double whammy of loving the people you're with so hard. There's you're already imagining the loss of them, right? So you're in that sort of double space.
Yeah, holding on to the moment while you're still in it.
Yeah. Well, these are crazy hard moves to make, right? Like, I'm going to start by talking about my friends, then talk about flowers and get to the wind. Like,
and fire, don't forget the fire.
That could go
and
so south. Right, exactly.
Yeah. It's so perfectly achieved here.
Yeah.
I wonder if the person's friends like them as much as he or she likes them.
Oh, I do. I do.
You're such a downer.
Well, that's why it's embarrassing.
That's why it's embarrassing. They need to get on with their life. And somebody taking up their time for a little while.
And their hand knotted pale rug.
Which is a little embarrassing.
Yeah.
That's what I like when embarrassing is.
Yeah.
You know, I like that this person in the poem is caught up in the sentimentality of friendship. But when you get down to it, eventually they're going to have to start paying back their student loans.
Yeah.
And they can doing the things they need to do that require so much work in the 21st century that they don't have time for this stuff. You know, it's so.
No, I disagree 100%. You're mean. You're cynical.
It's like the fiction writer and the poet.
Yeah.
When guests come, everybody's just in love, drinking wine, appreciating each other. For goodness sake, the student loans can wait.
There's a limit.
There's a thing called deferment. Okay, that's what there is.
That's true. And every person's deferment is a little bit different.
Bingo.
Yeah.
One person's going to fall. There's going to be a time. So I guess the art of it.
Back home to her daffodil. Like, and it's not that she's like in permanent rings there.
Her mind has never left this situation with this person and their friends. But they've gone on. And when she's at home with her daffodils,
No
they've moved on with
way.
their
No,
life.
it's about excess, right? That she has an excess of feeling for the friends that then she's sort of embarrassed by and concerned about. And then there's this kind of excess with the flowers blooming early. And the wind is excessive, right? Like that touches everything. The heat is excessive. That like there's so much of it in the world. And this kind of like sense of expansiveness that kind of keeps threatening to tip over into too much. So I think that like what you're saying is sort of like already being handled by the poem really delicately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just.
I think so too, but I think that's what it's about.
What I think is also just so wonderfully done is the mix between these things that are more abstract and intense and huge and all the things that we just said. And then the really specific images like that hand knotted white pale rug. Their gestures as subtle as hungry guests moving tentatively in a kitchen. Can't you just see that when you're in somebody else's kitchen and, you know, they're going, oh, serve yourself. And you know what I mean? And the guests are still like, afraid to open the cabinet. Which ones, you know, like I see it. It's so concrete and so real. And I love guest as the title too.
Yeah.
I suspect only egomaniacs like this much solitude. But like me, fire never says enough. And then check this out, next line. Fire my good dog, my work shirt. Like it's so fascinating what she does with that fire, right? Now,
love
her, beautiful, sensical, nonsensical, simultaneously.
My work shirt.
Fire my good dog, fire my work shirt.
Damn, Sarah Stickney.
Sure. What do you think?
I just like, there's just, I don't know, like so much to feel that I don't really know how to make sense of it. You know? So like I'm listening to you guys and like, it's just like everything makes sense to me. But like when I'm thinking about this myself, I'm like, what can I say about this? There's just so much that it's like, it's really beautiful. It's really like wonderfully crafted, but like trying to think of the words to say about it is like really a difficult task for me right now.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, where do I go first? How do I feel about this? How do I feel about that? But the imagery is like something that's like really like, wow.
Yeah.
Definitely wow.
Yeah.
So I don't, like I wish I had something more, but.
No, that's great.
Like,
That's great.
Like,
That sounds like a theory of poetry, like of good. Like, you know, you're in that territory when you're like,
Well, sort of everyone gets back to this idea that poetry is the unparaphrasable, right? Poetry is the thing that if you try to say it in other words, falls apart.
Right.
Said that really beautifully.
Right. There you go. We have to write that down. Can that be our title?
No, just the whole sentence.
that thing that Jason said.
And then, like, it reminds me of like Happy when you give like instructions to interns and stuff like that of how to like read poetry.
Mhm.
And it's like, if it doesn't feel like it punched you in the gut, then what?
But
So
it's a
I'm
no.
just like right now, I'm like, I feel like I was like punched in the face or something.
In the best way. In the best way.
Nice. Okay. Yes.
I think that's the title. I'm
Yes.
the best one.
That's a good title.
That's
All right. I think we're
Yeah.
probably ready to vote. I'm not sure, but yeah. Okay. Let's vote. 1, 2, 3. Yes. And Sarah Stickney is in. Yay! I doubt there was much dramatic tension there, but I'm so happy. Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to read this and read it and read it and make my students just get punched in the face.
Until your nipples turn to hum.
And fly across the room. You missed that, Poe. So what a great episode here. Being together, all of us in the same room for the first time ever, and
This is the
reading
first time
such
that all this-
extraordinary work. Thank you, everybody, especially Alana Folsom and Sarah Stickney. Thank you so much, and thank you to all of you. So let's please continue this conversation, listeners, and contact us via any social media platform because we're on them all. Woo! Yay. And share with your friends and keep reading. Thank you very much.